So let's take a look at this second student, this second case study. And we see this is a male student who's Caucasian and goes to a public school. And so, you know, this tells me that he's competing with other students going to public schools. In general, I think public schools tend to really help students who are near the top of their class really stand out as having been sort of, the theory is big fish in a small pond with students in a private school. Whereas in a public school, you really have to do a lot to really stand out. So that's sort of the context that I'll be thinking about. I don't know where this student is in which state, so that's something else I'd want to know. Let's look at the stats. This student has an unweighted 3.85 GPA, and that probably means that this student has a B, maybe 1 or 2 on their transcript. The weighted GPA shows me that this student's been taking, you know, AP classes. But again, by itself, just these stats don't tell me too much, because I need to know where this student falls within their class. Ultimately, when I'd be reading applications, I'd be reading students according to school groups. So everybody from this high school, I'd be reading all at once, so that I could get a sense of where this student falls in comparison to his or her peers. And if this were the only student applying from this school, I'd still want to know what the highest GPA is in the class, so that I could have a sense of, is this student in the top 1%, top 5%, etc. So let's take a look at the APs. This student has 5s across the board. That's great. There's also a mixture between the humanities and the sciences, and that's nice to see. 3 APs sounds a little light to me, but again, I'd need to know more about how many APs this school offers. Maybe there are only 3, maybe there are 5, maybe there are 15. And so depending, I'd want to see that this student is challenging himself by taking the most rigorous academic curriculum that he feels that he can do well in. And maybe that was 3. The other thing to consider is how many APs are his peers taking, because that's really the point of comparison that I'm going to be looking at. I'm not going to compare the student from case 1 to case 2 because they go to different high schools. They have different opportunities and resources available to them. I'll just be comparing students within the same school because they have similar kinds of opportunities. ACT of 35 is great. SAT of 2360 is even better, so that's fantastic. This student, just from looking at these stats, as well as SAT 2, 780, and Bio 800, this student is academically competitive from the perspective of top schools in the US. So that's good to see. I am a little worried that 3 APs might be a bit light, and the fact that this student has a B or 2 means that they may not be at the very top of their class, and so that's something I'd want to learn more about. That doesn't mean they're automatically disqualified or not considered. It's just those are some of the things that I'd be thinking about. So academically, this is a pretty interesting profile. Again, maybe a little bit light on the APs. If we look at the extracurricular activities, this student has a whole lot going on. This student is a student body vice president. And this is actually something that I would pay a lot of attention to. So there are different kinds of leadership positions that students can have within their school. And the positions in which students are elected to leadership stand out slightly more than those where they aren't. And so student body president or vice president really means that the school body had to elect that student. So that's a thumbs up approval from that student's peers. So that really does say a lot, especially at a public school. This student also is part of the International Help Club for 3 years, is president, so we've got leadership here again. They founded the NHS Club and is their VP for 2 years. Environment Help Club, also president, multiple years. FBLA, couple of years and president. Latin Club, a couple of years and president. So this student has an extraordinarily stacked extracurricular slate. And what I first think when I see this is something seems strange. I don't know how this student would possibly have the time to really cover all of these different things and be a leader. So this actually raises a red flag to me because we actually have more information about this student, and the list goes on and on. So to me, this does raise a red flag, because it's just next to impossible to be able to actually do all of these different things. So probably what I would do in this case is really scrutinize the letters of recommendation, and especially the guidance counselor's letter of recommendation, to see if they confirm that this student really has been part of all of these activities. And if I still feel uneasy about it, I might even give that guidance counselor a call to have a conversation with them and find out, is this student as amazing as he would seem, especially from a leadership perspective. So that's one of the sort of red flags that I'd be considering. I also would want to know, this student founded the NHS club, and this is a club that a lot of high schools have. I don't know how new this public school is, but I would have assumed they would have had one already if it's a well-established school. So that's something that I would want to investigate more. But assuming all of this is true, this student has taken incredible leadership and initiative to found new organizations, has consistency, has been really involved in a lot of depth and also breadth. What I'm not seeing here is anything that this student might be doing outside of the classroom. So that's something that I would be considering. The other thing to note that's in this student's file that we don't have on the board here is this student also says that he taught himself German and published a short story. So of the many things that I was reading about this particular student, those two things really, really stood out as potentially very interesting. So when I think about this student in general, it's hard to walk away and say, what exactly will help me remember this student? The things that I'm remembering are the fact that he taught himself German and has a short story that's published. Those are really unique kinds of interesting things. I'm going to remember that this is the all-star school leader, and that will be something to help me distinguish his profile against other students. But I'm struggling to find the thing that really helps this student stand out, because we've got some Latin, some environmental club, international help. Where's this student going? What is he interested in? So again, in order to make this student even stronger, even more compelling, I'd really want to see certain themes emerge. So are we going the environment route? If so, I want to see a lot of biology. I want to see chemistry. I want to see summer activities that back this up. If this student is also really interested in German, I mean, a neat thing to do would be to go do something in Germany focused on the environment. Maybe there's something that this student could do where he is translating, stories about the environment into German. So there are a number of things that I would want to see this student do to really help a theme emerge for him. And again, I'm not sure if it's the environment or if it's Latin or languages or something like that, but to really be strong, we'd want to see one or two things really emerging as sort of the themes coming from this profile. So that's my general assessment about this student, much stronger than the first case study. A couple of red flags, and I think this is something good to note, because students need to be careful how they present themselves. If they truly did all of these things, of course they should list them, but also know that, I mean, this is a huge time commitment. So that was one major thing I noticed. So let's move over to case study 3 and see what this student's all about.